So the session runs until 11:30, and essentially we're going to look at the call topic you see there, assessing the socio-politics of nature-based solutions for more inclusive and resilient cities. Or for more, I'm so used to saying cities, for more inclusive and resilient communities. So the structure of the session, Marlene will be presenting the call text and running through it in more detail. Then we will have a brief presentation from actually from Nikki, and I never pronounce it correctly, Franzikakis, from the University of Swinburne, is that correct? In Australia, and she'll be giving us an overview of state of the art in this area. Then we'll be going to a few pitches of a couple, mainly from Drift and from Trinity in terms of our interest in this call topic. Then we will look at, Marlene has prepared a Miro board where we invite you all to indicate where your specific interests are in this call topic, and we'll use that as the basis for more developed discussions. And that is really it. We will close then by telling you what happens next, depending on kind of what happens and what comes out during the session. So yeah, that's roughly the format for this morning. On housekeeping, as with all the other sessions, it will be recorded and made available from the Connecting Nature website afterwards. So yeah, so let's get stuck in. Marlene, I'll hand over to you to, oh, you're at 30, isn't that perfect? I'll hand over to you, Marlene, to give us a brief introduction to or an overview of the call topic that we're looking at.
Thanks, Yvonne. And as Tiago also presented before, today we are here to explore the opportunities of the call named Assessing the Socio-Politics of Nature-Based Solutions for More Inclusive and Resilient Communities. It's a research and innovation action call with the deadline of the 15th of February. And the budget is 6 million over 2 projects. So reading the call text, it became clear that the call needs to respond to the European Commission's goals of becoming leading, just, digital, economic, ecological transitions. And this is also linked to the European Green Deal priorities, such as the biodiversity strategy for 2030. So the research and innovation is expected to develop rural, coastal, and urban areas in a sustainable, balanced, and inclusive manner. And this is very important to remember when working on this call, because it's not only focusing on cities, and I also have the same pitfall as you, Siobhan, to always, because of Connecting Nature, because we work with cities, to think of them from their perspective. But here it also includes the rural and coastal areas, which makes it even more interesting to think about the social political dimension. Next, the research and innovation is expected to better our understanding of the environmental, socio-economic, behavioral, and cultural drivers of change. And last, the research and innovation will further support the empowerment of communities to adapt to climate change and turn digital and ecological transitions into increased resilience, well-being, and positive long-term prospects. So the results, the expected outcomes of the project are listed on this slide. And the first one, it stresses the importance to consider focusing on vulnerable communities and how MBS can contribute to social and economic targets there. The second focuses on the governance models and co-creation approaches and tools to involve a diverse set of actors from the communities and the different governmental bodies in thinking about planning, implementation, and stewardship of MBS. Through innovative governance strategies, as well as innovative design technologies, the aim is to enhance and further support the empowerment of communities to adapt to climate change and turn digital and ecological transitions into increased resilience, well-being, and positive long-term prospects. Siobhan, can I just ask you to mute yourself? I think I hear some background noises sometimes.
Apologies.
No problem. The third expected outcome of this goal stresses that the insight produced should focus on how nature-based solutions can respond to different socio-political contexts, and this will increase the replicability of nature-based solutions in diverse environmental, economic, and social conditions across Europe. So this goal challenges the applicants to move beyond the implementation challenges that are about the technological issues by focusing on the economic, social, political, moral, and cultural dimensions of designing and implementing nature-based solutions. It summarizes that most available approaches seem inadequate to fully take into account consideration, synergies, and trade-offs among different actions, especially the social and cultural benefits of nature-based solutions. They often also fail to understand the socio-political and institutional context and the material and discursive elements that shape nature-based solution implementation. The call concludes that the effects, the long-term success of nature-based solutions in contributing to the transformative change needed to address the biodiversity and climate crises. So finally, this understanding of socio-political and institutional context is particularly crucial when implementing nature-based solutions to support vulnerable communities and regions. Because this is needed to cope with transformative change in old industrialized, low-income, outmost, or disaster-hit areas. This goal also states that nature-based solutions can contribute to addressing inequalities and well-being in communities and regions who need it the most, especially in terms of the post-COVID recovery. And last, the understanding of how diverse actors who may operate at different scales and through multiple networks are engaged in the development and implementation of nature-based solutions is still limited, especially when the deployment of nature-based solutions imply collaboration across different regions, administrative areas, or simply different types of landowners. So that was a lot of information from the call, just for a short break. I don't see if you managed already to launch the poll. Okay.
Yeah.
So to get a little bit of grip of who is in the room for the brainstorm later, we launched this poll. And I was wondering if everyone saw it already and if you had the time to fill it in. Otherwise, please do so. Siobhan, do we want to look at it now together, or shall we do it?
Sure. Can you go to, Marlene, just to check, because I can see it on my screen, but if you go to beside the chat and you go to polls for this session, do you see 2 polls there?
Yes.
Okay, so if everybody just, there's 2 questions. The first one is, where are you from? And I didn't get a chance to, I think you cut me off at the point where I was adding in Australia, because I know we have one participant from Australia, but if you could just let us know very quickly where you're from. And then the second question is, what type of organization are you from? So if we can maybe just take 1 minute or less just to click on answer those 2 questions, and then we will have a look at what the results are like. So I thought, just while people are filling that out, I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if Tiago's still with us, but he mentioned that this was a complementary call to the one that's on the current, that's open at the moment, in terms of the economics of nature-based solutions. So that this is very much looking at the other dimension of that, the economics, but looking at it from the socio-political side. I wonder, though, my question is to what extent that the 2 can be mutually exclusive. I would always, because I suppose I'm coming from the economic side, I would always think you would have to include, you would need to consider the economics with the socio-political side of things as well. I think it's mentioned in the call text. I don't know what you think, Marlene. like communities, for example, should be engaged in different types of approaches to financing and business models for nature-based solutions. We have wonderful examples of community financing from Scotland in the My Park Scotland crowdfunding platform. I think Sean is on there. We might call on him to tell us more if necessary later. But, you know, so in other words, that you can't separate out the economics and financing. The community should be engaged in those discussions as well, and also in kind of co-governance models for longevity. Okay, look, I think that's enough for me. I will show the results of this, and we will move on. So show results. No. Okay, show polls. And did you see show results? Not sure if I'm seeing anything. Not sure how to show the results.
Maybe I have to stop sharing my screen.
I
click on the same and I don't see anything changing.
Show results.
But I think everyone can see once they participated in the poll, everybody
can see the results. Okay, very good. Okay, so, oh, there we go. So we have, in terms of the types of organizations, the majority are from research and education. We do have some government and some NGOs, and I think one or two SMEs, and then one other. And then in terms of where we're from, the majority from Northern Europe. I'm delighted to see we have somebody from the Caucasus, and we have Nikki, I think, is the 4% from not from outside. Okay, brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for that. We have a good idea now, I think, of who we have with us. So I think at this stage, do you want to conclude your presentation, Marlene? I think you had a couple more slides, and then we'll invite Nikki to speak.
Yes, thank you. So I think it's again now. And yes. So to summarize, the proposal should bring together multiple types of scientific expertise in both natural sciences, social sciences, and humanities. Projects should support the green and digital transitions in communities, living environments through merging sustainability, inclusiveness, and quality of experience. And the focus should be on innovative nature-based solutions that can be small-scale pilots. They have to be innovative, either in their functional scope, socio-economic reach, integrative approaches, or applications in new settings.
Okay.
And just to conclude, because you saw in the previous slides the new Bauhaus initiative mentioned, and for the ones who didn't hear or didn't look into that yet, I also have some information on that that I found online on the website. You can also see it here in the slide that will be shared afterwards. So just to summarize the new Bauhaus, the European Bauhaus initiative that the proposal needs to contribute to, it's in brief a creative and interdisciplinary movement in the making. It is a platform for collaboration between science and technology actors, as well as art and culture. So they combine the green and digital challenges as opportunities for transformation, and they also aim to co-create the innovative solutions needed in the transition.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marlene. Okay, so thank you. That's a very, I think, helpful introduction for those of us who haven't had a chance to maybe look at the call text in detail. What I'd like to do now is invite Nikki, perhaps, to give us a very brief introduction to kind of state of the art in this field at the moment. Nikki, we are, it's 5 to 11 wherever you are, so if you could maybe stick to about 3 minutes, do we think that's okay? And for Marlene, I'm not sure who's going to be presenting from Drift afterwards, and Tom, if you could also maybe stick to about 3 or 4 minutes, because we really want to give time to all of the other participants to find out who they are, what they're interested in, and so on. Okay, Nikki, over to you.
Yes, hello.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. Right now is 7 o'clock in the afternoon here. I'm very happy to reconnect, and I will respect my 3 minutes airtime. Well, from listening and also the very nice introduction that Marlene just gave, I want to provide a little bit of an input as an outsider of what I am for the past 3 years after my move here in Australia, especially with how the field of nature-based solutions, science and practice has been evolving globally, but in this global, of course, maturing of the field, the European researchers driven from these collaborative efforts within projects have been playing quite of a vital and driving role. There are 3 aspects that a number of global reviews that we have been undertaking clarify. The first is the geographical unevenness of the empirical cases. We see a lot of depth in some areas, in some cities, even in some regions, but we have a lot of, you might say, geographical gaps of the knowledge. And there have been some very bold attempts, especially if I think of the Renature project that look on the Mediterranean region and Mediterranean cities. But there are exactly some other areas that probably future research would benefit on considering as empirical grounds. From what I understood, from what Tiago presented in the previous session, and from what this call text is asking, is exactly to look on these less discovered and less engaged areas around Europe. So that could be also, in my view, something that we find from looking and making analysis of what is the state of the art, and probably fitting well with this new wave and new generation of Horizon projects and proposals. The second point for looking forward, again coming from a meta-analysis of review papers on urban NBS that we have been undertaking with colleagues of the Natura project, is that we see some repetition on the methodologies being used, and not so much methodological innovation in terms of investigation and assessment, but also in terms of co-creation. So if we are to advance the field of nature-based solutions and taking the opportunity of these new calls, I would call of going the usual methodological and epistemological pathways. Try to think innovative also in methodologies, in innovative settings for co-creation, engage with humanities, with arts, with different type of disciplines. So don't be afraid to also innovate in terms of methodology. And the third aspect is about the deepening, not only the broadening of the knowledge, but also the deepening of the knowledge. As I think most of the community now is very much aware, there have been a lot of consolidation and synthesis of tools. The handbook of evaluation that was published 2 months ago is one of these examples. There is a full handbook on indicators, on how to do evaluation, of evaluation techniques, examples. So before having the idea of proposing something new, a new framework, a new evaluation, a new set of indicators, I think it would be also beneficial to have a balanced approach of deepening the knowledge of what's already there. And all this effort the European Commission, the European Union has been making for all these handbooks, all these documents about nature-based solutions, I think they need to be taken forward, deepening the knowledge and the empirical grounds, apply them in innovative ways, apply them in new case studies, instead of jumping immediately into creating new things and new frameworks and new indicators.
Fantastic, Nikki. Thank you so much for that overview. And I think they're really very valuable points, in particular the first one, which you probably saw my question to Tiago in the last session. You know, how important is it to include these other countries where there's gaps? We can even see it from the profile of the participants in this session. We have a lot from Northern Europe, where I suppose to a certain extent we're preaching to the converted, whereas it's really the engagement of other areas around the world that we need to get involved. And we also have a lot to learn from these other countries. And that is, I think, one thing thing that stood out for me yesterday is that there's a lot of really good things happening outside of Europe, which we really need to bring in and see how we can how we can use that. And I would highlight Brazil as well, and we're doing a lot there. Okay, so thank you so much, Nikki, and always a pleasure to see you, and so glad you could join us. Now, let me see if we maybe go over to Tom. Can you add Tom, perhaps Marlene, Tom, if you want to share your audio, request to share your audio and video, then we can add you to the session. And Tom is going to very briefly, in 3 minutes, he's going to do a little pitch of Trinity's interest in this area. And actually, that one of the things he's going to mention relates to your second point there, which is about the repetition of methodologies and the need to be innovative, in particular when it comes to co-creation. And I think this is something which we have introduced the Sarajevo process, which I think is a very novel methodology. And because this call text specifies vulnerable communities and also reaching out to other communities, which I suppose we're used to developing a lot of our methodologies in urban settings, I think there's a lot of opportunities in this call text to really explore and develop new co-creation methodologies with different groups and so on. So have we managed to get Tom to join us yet? Tom, if you could maybe just let us know in the chat if you're having any problems. Can I see Tom there?
I will also leave from the video so as to allow other people to come and share, but I will stay in the session.
Okay. Yeah. I can see Tom is there. Tom, if you look at your screen, you can see at the very top where the leave button is, you should have a share audio and video option. If you click on that, we should be able to add you to the moderation panel. Yeah, okay. If not, what I'm going to do, Marlene, is I might go back to you first, and we'll switch the order a little bit, and we will ask Marlene to maybe if you, Marlene, would like to say a few words about the reason why Drift is interested in this particular call topic, and then I will contact technical support and see if they can help Tom out on getting into this session. But okay, so Marlene, 3 minutes.
Yes. So I will quickly introduce Drift for those of you who don't know our institute yet. The Dutch Research Institute for Transition, founded in 2004 at Erasmus University Rotterdam, and currently under the Erasmus School of Social and Behavioral Sciences. We are a group of 40 researchers and advisors. We also give post-academic education with all the goals to advancing transition theory and accelerating sustainable society. I have to get back to my navigation plane. Yes, so here's just a list of the research topic that we are interested in doing research on, and we also have a lot of research going on, also a lot of European projects connected to these themes. And just because of time, I want to only highlight a little bit the work that we did for Connecting Nature in terms of co-production and how we used to co-produce, how we use this innovative governance approach to co-produce challenges and opportunities the nature-based solutions have in the cities of Connecting Nature, and also to evaluate the processes, capacities, and outcomes. And this connects to the call text a lot, especially on the empowerment of communities that was highlighted there, and also the understanding of how diverse actors are engaged in the development and implementation of nature-based solutions. Next, and here you can, on the slide, you also see the links to the guidebooks and some of the other videos that we recorded for the Connecting Nature project on these topics. So the next one that is relevant is the guidebook that we wrote on reflexive monitoring, and this process that we co-created with the cities in Connecting Nature project, but is also very applicable for other types of organizations to apply for reflecting upon the complex challenges that they are facing when implementing nature-based solutions. And we really use this method to reflect upon the changes that are needed in terms of how we organize, how we relate the practices and the new discourses that are needed. And in the call text, I think where this method will be very helpful is to help the involved actors in the co-production process to reflect upon how to develop these rural, coastal and urban areas in a sustainable, balanced and inclusive manner. Just to sum up some of the projects that are very relevant for the call text that we've done before, also with our colleagues. The Urbana project that really focuses on marrying the concept of justice and sustainability, that also has a wiki page on nature-based solutions. We also have the Sonnet project, the Transit and the In Context project, and especially the Veerkracht-Canisse case of that project is an interesting case because it's also a more vulnerable community in Rotterdam that we worked with. Yes, so now I stop share and I find the slides of Thomas because you
Thank you, Marlene. Yeah, Tom has managed to join us. Tom, I'm so delighted that I did stand in for you. That would be winging it on a new extreme. So you're very welcome to join us.
Siobhan and Marlene, and sorry. And I just to add insult to injury, I was also on British Standard Time thinking, I'll just log in and then see can I check in ahead of my 10:35 time. So.
There's a few people have made that mistake.
Oh my God!
So not to worry, Tom. You're with us now. So Tom, we're a little bit short in time, so you have 3 minutes, and off you go.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, I'm here representing, I suppose, a number of organisations under the Trinity College Dublin umbrella, so to speak. Okay, so just move on to the next slide, please. Perfect. Thanks, Marlene. So we have the Trinity Centre for Social Innovation, which is a university-based research centre, really looking at the positive impact on society and the environment through engagement, research, innovation, and teaching. And then we have Trinity House Research Centre. Now, we really look at the built environment and the physical environment in terms of health, inclusion, and sustainability. And then finally, we have Empath. And Empath is a non-for-profit social enterprise that has grown out of the Connecting Nature project. And it's really looking at people-centered processes around engagement techniques and so on, with a real strong focus on nature-based solutions. So move on there, please, Marlene. Why are we interested in this call? Well, I think third time lucky would be one way to sum it up. We've had two proposals, or part of two proposals in previously, which did really well, excellent feedback, but just didn't get over the line. So we're really keen to take all of that hard work and translate it. And at this particular call, the heart of the mission of the group I just talked about is really transformative change with communities for communities, and it complements a lot of the previous Horizon 2020 work that's gone on. So if you move on one more. I mean, a couple of things really jumped out from looking at the call, and Marlene, some of the stuff you spoke about earlier on that's of real interest here. Looking at especially vulnerable communities. And a lot of our work from the research centre to Empath has focused on groups like people with disability, older people, children, and so on. So really getting through to them who are often marginalised. Ideas around co-creation and co-production, really critical. And it's absolutely fantastic to hear from Nikki that we should be really kind of pushing out the boundaries here and being as innovative as possible. And then interestingly, the bit around the new European Bauhaus. Trinity is currently going through the process of applying to be partnered there. Now, I think that's going to be a really interesting and complementary scheme. And it really addresses some of the key issues as part of this call. So I think that's something we should discuss and really keep our eye on. If you'd move on to the next one. So when we look at the groups that I named earlier on under the Trinity umbrella, the Centre for Social Innovation, Trinity House and Empath, we have a comprehensive and extensive knowledge around nature-based solutions. Looking at things like the engagement models. Siobhan mentioned briefly a process that has been developed as part of Connecting Nature, the Sarajevo process. Really interesting, really getting the heart of the issue, using arts-based and culture-based approach to really get under the skin of these problems and connect with people. Looking at business models and the business model canvas as used in the previous project, the role of nature-based enterprises, economic and social indicators, and so on. So what we'd love to bring to the project as a partner, and I think it's important to say rather than leading per se, and we would love to lead a work package or so on. So we would love to bring the expertise and the exemplars from the nature-based solution and Connecting Nature to date. There's a set of European cities that the partners have been working with that can bring this on board. There's obviously the Connecting Nature project, but there's other really exciting projects to connect with as well, like the Go Green Routes, another Horizon project. These can be all built on.
Okay, Tom, that's brilliant. Thank you for that introduction, and I'm sorry it had to be so short.
No, not at all.
But we're running a little bit behind time, so what we'll do now is we will move on to hear what everybody else in this session. So we've 35 people here, and we've prepared a Miro board, which Marlene is going to talk you through now. And essentially, we'll give everybody 5 minutes to kind of tell us a little bit about your area, your organization's areas of interest. And then we'll start maybe going around and inviting, picking out some of the post-its and inviting you to present on that. So Marlene, will I put the link to the Miro into the chat? Is that correct? Or would you like to do that?
Please put the link in there because somehow
okay, so if everybody,
we didn't practice sharing Miro, and now this platform wants to share Miro, but that's in a different way that I don't know what to do. So I will try to share my screen in another way now.
Okay, so if everybody wants to go to the Miro board, you can see the application there. So it might take you off screen. If that's okay with everybody. Yeah, brilliant. I can see lots of guest artists and builders. So it looks like you all are very familiar with Miro and know what to do already. You can see on the left-hand side. Marlene, do you want to talk through this, or do you want me to talk through it and you see if you can get it on screen?
Yeah, I don't think I can get it on screen. So I will just see everyone there. If people are there and don't see step 1 at the top left corner of expected outcomes, just press a long time on the drift icon that you see there, because then you will see the same thing as I see. If you have any other questions on how to do the Miro, ask them in the chat, because Cato, our colleague, Wouter and Karin from Drift are also there. They can answer the questions in the chat on how to navigate Miro. You see here, step 1 is to write on one post-it, as I and Siobhan already did for Drift and Trinity, why you are interested in the call, what you can contribute. Also put your name, organization, possible role, and your email address there. Then you...
I was just going to say about the email address, please only add your email address if you would like us to. The proposal afterwards is to share this Miro board with all of the participants that have contributed to it. So if you add your email address, we will assume that you want to receive a copy of the Miro board. If you don't put in your email address, you will not be contacted. So just you have to opt in to be contacted by adding your email address.
Yes, that's also what we underneath the empty post-it. So you can just take an empty post-it from the big piles and start writing by double-clicking in the post-its there. Underneath you see that everyone who filled in their email address will also receive a copy of the Miro board afterwards. So once you did that, and you fill in one post-it per expected outcome, because there are 3 and you colleagues that want to contribute to one or the other, so you can fill in multiple ones. You can also fill in one and spread it over 2 if that's possible. If you want to contribute to 2 and that's possible, but better just copy the post-it and put it in more places.
That's right. You can duplicate across, yeah. And of course, it may be, Marlene, that people are only interested or can only contribute to one of the particular headings at the top. They don't necessarily have to contribute to all 3. Would that be correct?
Yes, definitely. So make also clear if you have a contribution to all 3, then it will be a different type of contribution. So make that explicit as well.
Brilliant. So the three headings then, where did you draw these from? Are those the expected outcomes?
Yes, they are the expected outcomes that are written in the call text. And I also, just for people who are still not very familiar with the call, I also copied at the left part that the successful proposal should. That's a very long list. So if you are just still thinking of what can I contribute, you can also have a look at that list. Okay. But for now, I think what we want to do is that everyone fills in their name and position themselves, their contribution, and then position themselves under the expected outcomes, so that we can also do a round and ask some people that want to explain how they see their contribution.
Exactly. So if you could add, I can see, for example, Sarah Milliken there. So Sarah, we can see you, we can see your email address. If you could possibly say under the topic of, you know, the contribution of MBS to social and economic targets in vulnerable communities and transformative change, what kind of contribution you would be able to make to this call topic. So it would be really interesting not just to know that you're interested, but what kind of contribution you could make. So that would be great. So I'm seeing lots of names, but it would be great at the next couple of minutes if you could maybe add a little bit more on really kind of what your area of expertise is. If you've developed, as Nikki was saying, new methodologies related to co-creation, or if you've been involved in you know, existing knowledge creation, maybe around the handbooks or whatever else, or even if you can bring in, you know, different countries, or if you're from a different country that's not as where MBS is still relatively underdeveloped.
Yeah, or the different types of communities that were mentioned.
Exactly, that's true.
Coastal areas, and then vulnerable communities within these more coastal and rural areas. That would also be
that's really
very
absolutely
helpful to know if you are connected to them, or if you worked with them before. Or
yeah, absolutely. So there's the coastal and the rural communities. You know, it's funny because coastal communities, I mean, a lot of cities are on coasts as well, so there's a certain overlap there. But yeah, certainly I know a number of projects like Future Mares and Merces, which were very much focused on kind of coastal marine NBS. So I think if there's anybody there from those projects, that would be really interesting and relevant on the coastal side of things. The other thing is, in terms of the vulnerable communities, was there any precision, Marlene, in the call text on what was meant by vulnerable communities?
Nope, I didn't find it.
I don't know if Tiago is still with us, if there was a definition of vulnerable communities.
Except for there were some words afterwards in the text, like the disaster hit. And
an old industrialized, yeah.
Old industrialized. So might also be economically vulnerable.
That's right. Old industrialized, low income, outermost or disaster hit areas.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be quite interesting. And I think that's one of the things we need to explore. How is that defined? Okay, so what we might do is we have about 10 minutes left. We'll give you another minute or two, and then we will maybe invite, and just Marlene, will we leave this Miro board open so that people can contribute to it over the course of the day and maybe develop a little bit better their inputs, because we're very short in time this morning, and then we can send it to everybody once the conference or once the summit closes. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, that's possible. We can also, for now, we leave it open without a password. But because everyone is also filling in their email addresses, afterwards we will put a password on it. And to everyone that left their email address, we will share the password. So then also afterwards you can still add to it. So this can still be accessed, but only by the people who have permission.
Okay, excellent. So immediately after this session, so the key thing to do for everybody, I can see there's 19 people contributing to this at the moment. The key thing is to make sure you leave your email address if you want to receive a copy of the Miro board, and if you want to continue to develop your contribution to it afterwards. And then once the summit closes, so we'll send you an email with your password or password to access this straight afterwards, and then we'll send you the final Miro board once the summit closes. So you have a little bit more time over the rest of the morning. I think
I will leave it open without the password for this day. But
would you do
afterward,
that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
Just afterwards, I will put the passwords on it. I will, and once we share it also with the participants.
Siobhan and Marlene, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
In terms of that, the definition or the scope around the rural, coastal, or urban areas, which you mentioned a minute ago, and Siobhan, you said yourself that many rural areas, cities and towns are on the coast. It's kind of everywhere. If you say rural, urban areas and coastal areas, it's funny that that they're using that kind of language. I wonder, do we have any insight into a more kind of specific scope or kind of geographical, because that's almost everywhere, really, if you think about it in that context.
Okay. Well, Tiago has just put into the text there that there was no definition. No, he said, Tiago, maybe if you want to share your audio and video and just comment on that, might be easier. There's Tiago, yeah. So we can add you there if you want to comment on that. Because you say there was a list of types. But yeah, was that what you were commenting on?
Yeah, as Marlene said, after the mention to vulnerable communities, we have a list of types there, including disaster hit, outermost, and let me see the text again.
Low income, old industrialized.
Low income, exactly.
Okay.
Regarding the scope, urban, coastal, and rural, this is the idea behind this was not to focus only on cities, as we have been mostly in the past in NBS portfolio. So we really need to broaden the scope here, especially because we know that there are a lot of differences between rural communities and urban communities regarding the perceptions that people have about nature and about the benefits of nature. So this is why this has to be taken into consideration. Now, if the proposal wants to have 2, 3 urban communities, 1 rural, then it's up to the proposal to decide exactly what they need to have, but they should include the 2 at least.
When you say they should include the 2 at least, you mean rural and urban?
I mean the 3, so urban, coastal, and rural, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
But of course, some urban areas are...
Yeah.
Then it all depends on your choice then. But it's important to strike here the difference between urban, especially urban and rural communities, and how they perceive nature in different ways. So.
Okay. And could I ask as well, Tiago, does that mean that in terms of scale of NBS, because when you're talking about scale of NBS and at an urban level, it's not that they're always smaller scale, but certainly when you're talking about rural areas, you could be talking about landscape level or delta level. So are you looking at potentially at larger scale projects? Yeah.
We leave it open. We leave it open. We understand that in rural areas, nature-based solutions are generally at a larger scale, and we understand that. So it's up to the consortium to define the exact scale. So there is no scale limit, let us say, in this project, this topic.
Excellent. Okay. And okay, brilliant. Listen, that's been very helpful. Okay. And we only have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to go to the Miro board and I'm just going to identify, maybe Sarah, if you could turn on if everyone at this stage could turn on their audio and so their audio and video. If we could ask Sarah, you've been mentioned there that you're interested in mapping socioeconomic data in areas of need in terms of microclimate cooling for poor quality housing. I'm not sure if you want to say anything more on that. If you want to say anything more on that, you if you go into the brokerage area or go back into the main screen, and you can ask to share your audio and video at the top of the panel, where you see leave instead of leaving. Don't click that. You can click share audio and video. There we go. So we can add you then. And if you would like to say, Sarah, a word about what you're doing, there we have you now with us. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can perfectly.
Yeah, no, I mean we've mainly worked in urban contexts. We have expertise in particular green roofs and living walls. So we're just looking to get involved in a project and use our expertise. And
Okay.
As I said in the Miro, yeah, using mapping socioeconomic data to identify areas at risk of future heat wave, poor quality housing, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. So maybe if that's brilliant and very interesting and relevant, particularly for, as you said, for urban areas where the concept's relatively well developed. Do we have, maybe if I ask, I see Constanza O'Toole there, I think from the Rivers Trust, would I be right in saying, Constanza, that is more of a rural dimension to your work? If you want to, again, share your audio and sound and comment on that, that would be useful. There we go. Constanza. Excellent. Hi, Constanza. Yeah.
In response to your question, a lot of the communities we work with are in rural areas, but not all of them. So because the rivers flow through cities as well. And the environmental problems we have are quite diverse, and it really depends on what stretch of river you're talking about. So I think it might be really good to include an aspect like that, because we're touching all of the different rural and urban areas, and also different types of problems that are associated with how that catchment is used.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a very good point, of course, that it covers a number of different rivers flow through a number of different types of communities.
And
do you have any perspective on vulnerable or, sorry, go on.
Sorry, what I was just going to say is also people often don't make the connection that how the river is used upstream has actually an impact lower down. So in the community, it could be that something that happens upstream in the river then leads to a flooding event downstream in a town or village. So I think that's a really good component, that we need to connect these communities also.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really good. Yeah. Brilliant. So better integration. And again, exploring that, as Thiago mentioned there a moment ago, that dimension of the different attitudes towards nature in different communities would be really important in terms of bringing them together and reaching consensus. And that's where, again, going back to what Nikki said about the need for novel co-creation methodologies, that could be explored. Aidan, sorry, if I could maybe, I'm just very conscious of time, Constanza, and I want to bring, I see Aidan has been waiting here as well. Aidan, do you have a quick comment on that? And then we might bring one more person in, and I think then at that stage, we'll have to wrap up. So if anybody else wants to particularly jump in at this point, if you just click share audio and video, I see there's some very interesting comments from the Roar. There's ones about treating wetlands and so on. But Aidan, would you like to share your perspective on this call text?
Yeah, I'm conscious of time, so I'll try and be as succinct, which is difficult for me because I tend to be quite verbose. Anyway, so I've put in a mural submission there in the context of urban tree canopy cover in the Greater Dublin area. I work, as you know, with the Lear Down County Council. So in the course of preparing our new emerging urban tree canopy, urban forestry strategy, I've discovered, certainly at desktop study level, areas of deprivation within our county and are linked to the deprivation index produced by Pubble. So there, we've already discovered, and we've worked with Crosscare and Southside Partnership on areas of deprivation, and there seems to be a link possibly also to health outcomes. So that's so we've already discovered that we need more granular investigation research.
Yeah, and I think a very good point. And I think we could also learn from, say, cities like Glasgow, where I know they've done a lot of work on this Glasgow effect and areas of deprivation. if I can notice that Nicholas Effenberg has from the Caucasus region. I don't know if Nicholas can join us, because I think that might be also one of the areas perhaps where NBS is. I know we've got an Urban by Nature program running there at the moment, but it's an area where there's a lot of potential for further development. So maybe if we go to Sebastian first, because just you were here, and then we'll go to Nicholas. And I think maybe if we run a minute or two over, we did start a minute or two late, that might be okay. We're jumping into the networking, we're cutting into the networking area time. We're doing here is networking. So, okay, so Sebastian, maybe if you want to share your perspective first.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me a few seconds. I'm Sebastian from the Ruhr area, and we have a project. It's called Landscape Laboratory. We are thinking that the Ruhr metropolis area is a region of several cities, should be a more like an ecosystem landscape approach, which we want to work out. And we think that this call could fit very well in a regional manner, because we have so much agricultural land in between all this urban sprawl, and also we are surrounded by rural areas which we want to connect to the urban area through an idea of green hubs, which is also like an economic model, but also working in neighborhood level and supporting also as knowledge hubs. So we are thinking of a concept of connecting rural and urban sprawl and the urban centers in the rural area. And we already discussed the idea of this call on that level. So we would be really interested in continuing that.
That sounds really interesting. So I'm seeing a theme coming out here already, or well, not perhaps a theme, but definitely from what Constanza was saying a moment ago, and you were saying, it's this not so much dividing these communities, but seeing where the consensus is and how we can connect them upstream, downstream, rural, urban. So I think that's a really interesting, you know, perception. And again, it brings together the importance of these kind of novel co-creation methodologies to do that. Tiago's just given us, if we've got anybody from an outermost region, you can check and see if you are. But otherwise, Nicholas, I don't know if you would, I don't think you'd be an outermost region, but if you could perhaps introduce us a little bit to your perspective. You're based in the Caucasus, is that right?
No, I'm based in Germany, actually.
Oh.
Thank you for putting me on. But we do have a cooperation, and we now want to head for replying to a call in nature-based solutions with the American University of Armenia. And we already did some, we are still now looking for other partners. And yes, but what I can tell is that especially in the Caucasus region, there's a large interest in joining. So first of all, joining European calls, and then of course also joining nature-based solution calls. I was able to present some calls already 2 years ago, and but received a lot of feedback and a lot of interest. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. That's good to hear. I know also in Connecting Nature, we have a hub in the Caucasus and a number of very active partners there, so it might be good to connect with them. So I don't know if we have anybody from our more exotic regions of Guadeloupe, French Guiana, Réunion, Martinique, Mayotte, Saint-Martin, the Azores and Madeira and the Canary Islands. So they're the outermost regions, which would make for, I can't wait to involve some of these guys. You can imagine the project meetings. We actually, I worked with Madeira and a previous partner, our previous project, and it was a phenomenally proactive community. So really interesting. So Simona, where are you coming from? If you want to unmute yourself. Now, we had Simone there a minute ago. We seem to have lost Simone. You might want to just request audio and sharing access. If anybody else would like to join, we're going to have to wrap up, I think, very soon. But if Simone is able to perhaps come back and join us, perhaps not. Okay, well, look, there we go. We're at 10:30 or 11:35 CET. So we'll wrap it up at this stage. So thank you so much, everybody, for your participation today. Thank you, Tiago, in particular, for giving us those clarifications, and Nikki for your words of wisdom in terms of, you know, where the state of the art is at the moment. Thank you, Marlene, for presenting the call text, and to Marlene and Tom for presenting, and for everybody else who's jumped on board. It's a really interesting call topic. Please spend some time, if you have, over the rest of the day completing the Miro, and if you leave your email address, we will share that with you afterwards. As you can see, we have a lot of people who are interested in being partners. If anybody would like to make contact with any of the other partners who presented today, with a view to developing a consortium further or organising a meeting, please feel free to do so. But otherwise, we will circulate. We at least have a network created now of people who are interested, and we will stay in touch that way. So thank you very much. I'm off to join the networking session now, and we wish you a very enjoyable rest of the day. Anything else, Marlene, that I need to point out? Marlene, you're on mute. Yes, Marlene? Yeah.
Oh, yes. So one last thing, if you were not able to leave your contact details in the Miro because Miro didn't work, you can also leave it in the chat. I see one email already there, but just to be inclusive here as well for people who cannot work with Miro, some computers can't, leave your email address in the chat, and then you will also receive the Miro link details, everything.
Thank you. I see Elena's adding hers, and of course Elena has lots of expertise of these delta level landscape and nature-based solutions. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. I think we close the session there, Marlene, and well, actually, we might wait for a minute or two because I see there's some more email addresses coming through. So
yeah, I will wait and add them to the board. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'll leave you to it. Thank you. I have to go get ready for the next session. Bye.